Thank you. So I'm Keith Linker. I'm with the Central Orange County chapter of CCL. And we're lucky today to have Kathleen Treseder. No, say that. Treseder. That's how I heard it the second time. She studies ecosystems that are endangered by climate change, including Alaskan forests, Costa Rican cloud forests, and California shrublands. She's a professor in the Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology at UCI. That's a mouthful. She earned her PhD from Stanford and was elected a fellow of the Ecological Society of America, and is also a fellow of the American Association for Advancement of Science. Her research has been covered by the Orange County Register, the New York Times, NPR, National Public Radio, and Discover Magazine. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Hello, everybody. I think it's all right. Okay. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm a professor at UC Irvine, which is in Orange County, and I've been doing research on these endangered ecosystems for 20 years now. And so I go to these ecosystems year after year, and I can actually see the climate change happening over 20 years. These ecosystems are really changing. They're being affected. And so I spent these 20 years working on my science, keeping my head down, trying to make publications, what my university wants me to do. And I haven't really thought too much about the political side of climate change. I didn't really think too much about climate advocacy. But then that all changed when Trump got elected. And especially once he announced that he intended to withdraw from the Paris Agreement, I thought, okay, I've really got to change my priorities. And this is the time. Like, we don't have much time left, as you know. So I set aside a lot of my research and a lot of aspects of my job and decided to focus more on political advocacy for the time being. And I teamed up with several of my colleagues at UCI, other professors, and one of the things we wanted to do was we wanted to talk to our representative, Mimi Walters. So Mimi Walters was used to represent the 45th District of California. She was a Republican. We wanted to get meetings with her, to talk to her about why we needed to work on climate. We could not get a meeting with her. We tried for years. She just avoided us like the plague. And in fact, Citizens Climate Lobby actually had a lot more success than we did. They got in and they were able to talk to Mimi, but we never would. So we got really frustrated. And I decided, well, I need to do something, and I need to talk to some sort of public official who I have access to. And so I ended up deciding to focus on community choice energy. And community choice energy operates at the city and county level. So this means that I could lobby city council members and county elected officials, and they had to talk to me because they have these city council meetings. You're allowed to go there and talk for 3 minutes on whatever you want. They have to sit there and listen to you. And so I started doing that. It was really gratifying. And so we've actually been able to make some decent headway in Orange County for community choice energy as a way to increase our use of renewable energy. And so I'm going to talk to you about that. But that was the reason I got into it, is just because it was a lot more accessible to me to potentially make these changes. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about why we're particularly concerned about energy sources in relation to climate change. So first of all, as we know, we're changing climate, and when we don't use renewable energy, that adds to the climate change. But also, the climate change itself causes power insecurity. So as temperatures rise, especially in Southern California, where we're already fairly warm, people need to use their air conditioners more and more. All right, they have to, especially older people. They're particularly susceptible to heat issues. Okay, so they're adding more air conditioners, using them more. We expect that by the end of this century, the demand for electricity should be about 7% higher on average. And in addition, we're expecting to have heat spells here that may last for months. And so people will really need to be using their air conditioners a lot. At the same time, these higher temperatures and the drought that we experience reduces the efficiency of power generation. Like the natural gas power plants do not work as well at these higher temperatures. And so we expect at the same time this demand is increasing that, say, natural gas power plants will have a 3.5% reduction in electricity production. And so that means that it's a double-edged sword. Not only do we need more electricity, but we can't get enough. And this is really a concern, I know, to our city council members. They think about this. They have to ensure the safety of their residents. And part of that safety is making sure that they have power. They need power for the AC, they need power for hospitals, they need power for the police. It's very important. So this is a good way for us to get in and talk to city council members. All right, we can go in and talk to them about community choice energy. All right, so I'm going to explain to you what community choice energy is. Community choice energy is a program that allows cities to buy energy directly from power producers. Right? They can buy that energy on behalf of their residents and the companies in their city. Then the utility that already exists, like SDG&E, SoCal Edison, they're responsible for delivering that energy to the customers in the city. All right? And they maintain the lines, they maintain all the infrastructure, they can bill customers. And then the customer then gets this energy. The nice thing about this is if the city gets the energy right from the power producers, number one, they can decide which power producers they want to work with. If the consumers want renewable energy, then they can buy power from renewable energy companies. Right? They can also look for the lowest bidder if that's what they're interested in. They can save a fair bit of money. They don't have the utility being a middleman. Right? So the customer rates actually go down. Okay, so this just basically means that the community then, instead of getting the electricity delivered by the utility, from whatever sources the utility decides, they get to choose potentially renewable energy, and a lot of times they'll save money. Okay. So this can really help individual cities. Now, and it can especially help with some of the downsides that we're seeing in the current system. So in the current system, we'll have, during heat waves, rolling blackouts in Southern California, right? So if the system gets too taxed, we have this power coming from other states. If that gets taxed, there's not enough power coming, then your utility company decides which cities to turn off power to, right? The cities do not have control over that, and they also do not have control over the security of that power supply, right? The utility is in charge of it. If the city instead selects its own power sources, it can actually work with power providers right within the city, right? And they can make sure that there's enough power sources to deal with this higher demand during heat waves, right? And then that way, that helps improve the stability of electricity in cities. Another downside of the current system that community choice energy helps with is that it kind of gets rid of this monopoly that the utilities have right now. So SDG&E and SoCal Edison, together they have the highest electricity prices in California. So people are really paying a lot of money. I don't know if you're happy with your electricity bills. I imagine a lot of you have solar power, but those who don't are really getting high electricity bills these days. They can artificially elevate pricing. I don't know if you remember back in the early 2000s, Enron, they artificially created a decrease in power supply in order to elevate prices, and we had these massive blackouts, and it was really a crisis in Southern California. So they can do that. And then also the utilities have little incentive to operate efficiently. They don't have competition, right? They don't have people out there looking for the lowest bidder or the best supplier. So it's not a great system right now. Okay, so community choice energy is a solution to that. So we can actually, the idea is that if cities are able to buy their own power supply, they might be inclined especially to invest in startup companies that are local. So that way, this revenue stays within the city. And they can, if they want to, especially support renewable energy suppliers. And so, for instance, they could set up these solar farms near a college campus or a school. This is one that's near a college campus. And then they have their own energy supply. That is not vulnerable to maybe a heat wave or a forest fire happening elsewhere that might affect the transmission lines. They have it right there. In addition, this is a good way to facilitate renewable energy, right? So right now, the utilities, they get to decide where they get their power, and they don't even need to really tell us where they get their power from. But if the community chooses it, they can directly decide renewable energy, and so the community can approach the city council members and make requests. So this is a request from Maverick, a 4th grader in Irvine, and he says, "Dear Mayor of Irvine City, we would like you to try to start using wind or solar energy. Not saying you have to, but it will help the environment." And so this is great. And I can tell you that the ability for the citizens to directly ask for this from the elected officials makes a difference. Now, Maverick sent this postcard in to Mayor Wagner of Irvine. Mayor Wagner is a climate change denier. He doesn't want to hear about the environment in general, but because kids and other citizens have been directly approaching him about this, he has actually started to support community choice energy. He's feeling pressure from the community. All right, so this is a way to get lots of people on board. Okay. And in addition, what's really nice about community choice energy, and one of the reasons that I started working on it, is that it has bipartisan appeal. All right, so there's the renewable energy issue that is very helpful for me, but also there are a lot of good Republican talking points for this plan. So here are some benefits. One, you have local control. All right, who doesn't like local control? Do you really want to be beholden to some random company out there? Freedom of choice for the customer. That's very appealing from what I can tell to Republicans. The customers also can opt out. In community choice programs, if they want to stay with the utility for whatever reason, they can say, yeah, we don't want to deal with that. So they have a lot of choice. There's competition in the marketplace that drives prices downward, always a good thing. We have local jobs and economic developments, always helpful, and provides potential cost savings to businesses. So businesses are getting on board with this. And so what this means is that you can go into a diehard climate denier Republican mayor and talk to them about these points and sell him on this, and you don't even need to mention the environment or green or climate even once, right? And it's been working so far. I'm so pleased with it. Okay. And we have been getting bipartisan support for this program. And so here are, working in Orange County, here are a few of the elected officials who've really gone on record as being strong supporters of community choice energy. And you see we have even a couple of Republicans already. Now, one of them is Chris Murray, and I just wanted to highlight her. She has been very, very helpful with us. Our citizens group, we started up a group called OC Clean Power, and she has been helpful with us from the very beginning. She has helped us with strategies for lobbying. She's told us the talking points to use. She tells us the landscape of which elected officials to approach in the area. And I really appreciate that she's reaching out across the aisle. And she actually came and gave a keynote lecture in a climate solutions summit that we held at UCI last year. She's that invested. And so I really appreciate that she's doing this. And I just wanted to mention, I know this is going to be controversial, but she's running for the OC Board of Supervisors. And I think that for the first time in my life, I might actually vote for a Republican. I can't believe it. But I might vote for her just because she's such a strong supporter of environmental programs and climate action. So far, this has been going fairly well. And in Orange County, you really have to have bipartisan support to get something to happen. Okay, so now a lot of people want to know, how do you pay for community choice energy? The nice thing about community choice energy does not require any taxes or anything like that, no government subsidies. It's all revenue-based. All right, so basically, there's an existing revenue stream. You have customers who are buying power. Instead of paying the power company a lot for that power, they simply pay the community choice energy program for it for cheaper. So in addition, cities, they don't need to do the hard work of going out and looking at energy suppliers and getting bids or setting up contracts. They can just hire firms to manage the program. There are quite a few firms around who specialize in this. And so the cities don't need to be experts. They don't need to put that time into it. And the money that they save from the lower energy prices can be used to hire this firm. Okay. All right, so now how can this help renewable energy use? Well, so far the programs that have been set up in California have been very, very focused on renewable energy. And they usually will have a package that they offer to consumers that is even 100% local renewable energies. So here's an example of some packages in Sonoma County. Sonoma County has had a long-running community choice energy program. So when customers go to look at their bills, they have the choice of, say, option 1, which is 42% renewables. With option 1, they save something like 4% over their previous rates. They can pick option 2, though, 100% local renewables. And there, the price is about even with what they were paying the utility before. And they don't really see a big cost. So this means that there's just a lot of choice, and people can buy power aligning with their values. It is a decent way to try to green the grid for power. Now, another nice thing about this is that cities can use the revenue they generate to start greening the transportation sector as well in their cities. So the deal is that right now, because the utilities are charging so much money for power, when the cities take over, they can reduce the rates for the customer, but they still can make a fair bit of money off this revenue. So even small cities can make now millions of dollars a year. So they can invest that extra revenue into perks for people who are using green transportation. And so just to give you an idea, Sonoma customers, they actually get paid to charge their electric vehicles. The money comes from this revenue, from community choice energy. And they get extra rebates on electric vehicles. So in Sonoma, you can go, if you're a community choice energy customer, you can go to one of the dealers in Sonoma and you can buy an electric vehicle for $9,000. It's unbelievable. And that extra money is subsidized by the revenue from the community choice energy program. And so I know that, for instance, I've been talking with the Irvine city staff, and they say that they're very concerned about greening our Irvine transportation sector, and they're asking us to find ways to do that and ways to incentivize customers and companies, and this is one way to do it. All right, so how is this program looking so far in Southern California? Well, the nice thing is that it's actually already established in quite a few places, so it's a known entity. All right, so here's the Southern California landscape. We actually have a decent coverage of community choice energy programs already in Southern California. So right here, the orange sectors, that's where there's an operational community choice energy program. And right here, where we are in LA, it's community choice energy. And it's just barely getting started up, but it's very exciting. A ton of customers, a ton of cities within the LA region. We also have particular cities and areas in San Bernardino and Riverside that are operational. And then also the city of San Diego has a community choice energy program that's just getting online, and it's really exciting. So there's actually a lot of consumers right now in Southern California that are covered by community choice energy, and they're choosing to buy renewables. Now, the county of San Diego is investigating. If they decide to do community choice energy, that's an even huger group. Right? So we're working hard in San Diego to try to have that happen, the county. You'll notice here that, I'm from Orange County. There's nothing there in Orange County right now. We call ourselves the hole in the donut. All right? There's community choice energy all around us, but we just haven't done it there yet. So that's one of the reasons we're lobbying so hard for city councils to consider this. And right now, we're making actually good progress. There's 5 cities that have commissioned feasibility studies for community choice energy. And so they're just waiting for them to come back. Usually after the city gets a feasibility study back, they see how much money they will make, and they usually decide to do it. And then about half of the cities in Orange County right now are doing research on it. So they're working with our group, OC Clean Power, to be informed about it, and they're asking their city staff to write reports. They're interested, but they just haven't committed money to it yet to pay for the feasibility study. So, so I think it's looking good. We're doing everything we can to maintain that momentum. Okay, so what are some of the strategies that we use for lobbying elected officials? I think there are probably a lot of the same strategies that you have, and I'm sure that you all are better trained than I am in these methods. But I'm going to tell you some of the things that Chris Murray has told us is helpful and has worked so far. Okay, one is to just directly ask city council members to commission a feasibility study. All right, so if you're approaching a city council member for a city that hasn't thought about community choice energy, it's a big ask to talk to them about it and to try to get them to consider it, because it's a big change for them. But what's a kind of an easier ask is just to say, can you just pay for a feasibility study just to find out if it's right for this community? You'll hire a firm, they'll tell you with some expertise what is involved, and the feasibility study costs like $75,000, but they can split it with other nearby cities, and it's not like a huge amount of money. So it's just a small ask. Just check it out. See if community choice energy is good. You can do that individually in meetings with city council members, or you can just swarm a city council meeting like we did in Irvine. So here's some pictures of us right after a city council meeting in Irvine, where we had a lot of people, a lot of different groups came. There are high school students here, people from Citizens Climate Lobby, Sierra Club, other things. We packed that city council chamber and asked for community choice energy. I think it really made an impression, and the city council voted unanimously to commission a feasibility study. We heard later on that was the biggest group that's ever packed a city council meeting in Irvine, and the city council members still remember that. We really show up for each of these. We can also ask for businesses to support this. City council members have to be very concerned about businesses in their areas and how they feel about it. Energy for their businesses can create quite a cost. So we're approaching in Irvine the largest employers in Irvine, Hoag Hospital and Edwards Life Sciences. We lobbied them to ask them to just send a support letter to the Irvine City Council, and they agreed. So they signed on, they joined OC Clean Power, and they've sent letters saying that they want this program. And that really helps. That lends credibility to the program. And there are other things that we can do, like asking if you have a housing board in your neighborhood to send a support letter, that helps as well. All right. Now, one of the things that we've also learned is that we have, as citizens, a lot of credibility. Usually these city council members are being lobbied by the utility companies and different groups that really have an economic interest in what they're doing. But as citizens, they take us more seriously. And so it really helps to make connections with local groups so that you can get involved if you want. There's a lot of local groups that are already on the case. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. They've already got a strategy. They can just get your work done. So for example, if any of your chapters are interested in being involved, or any of you as individuals, I recommend that you go to check out the California Alliance for Community Energy. And this is kind of a grassroots advocacy group that's set up, it's statewide in California. There's the website address there. You can go on, there's an online form, you can sign up, get the newsletters, there's teleconferences every month that will update you on what's going on. You can also have your chapters if you want, join this. If you are in San Diego has something similar. It's a little bit more focused. This is San Diego Community Choice Alliance, and it's the same deal. You just sign up, and then they get you involved, and they let you know, like, these are the city council meetings to go to. Please go make these talking points. In Orange County, we have OC Clean Power. I was one of the co-founders with Robin Ganahl and several other amazing groups. And right now, this group is just an umbrella advocacy group. We have something like 35 different grassroots organizations. We have a school district. We have people from UCI. We have elected officials. We have businesses. And we all act together to try to make these lobbying requests. And this has been really a lot of fun, actually, making all these connections. All right, and so I just want to finish up and say that I'm really excited about this opportunity. It's really fun to be able to get in there and talk to our elected officials and see the difference that it makes. And it is one way, I think, to really improve our use of renewable energy. I like to think of it as dovetailing with what I understand Citizens Climate Lobby does. The Citizens Climate Lobby is working on this national and international scale, and then I think it helps to also put the pressure at this local scale. And I think it doesn't hurt to operate both ways. And it's also a lot of fun. Like, we got our kids involved, and they have a great time talking to the mayor. And anyway, I really enjoyed it. And so I want to thank you very much for coming. And I have, I think, some time for questions. All right, I want to make sure that I answer your questions. I'm sure that you have them. All right, thank you. Okay, Christine? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the question is, in terms of reliability, if we're adding solar power and wind in your area and relying on them so much, that also leaves us vulnerable to, if those sources are not working at a particular time or overloading the grid, then that could potentially be a problem. And I think that's a very good question. One of the things that cities can do is they can start constructing a microgrid. They can actually pay for these transmission lines, local transmission lines, within their city by using the revenue that they generate from this program. And that can also help with the reliability if they have their own microgrids. I think that you've definitely got a good point. Wind and solar, the solar is available only a certain time of day. You have to worry about what's happening at night. Wind also is unreliable time-wise. Those are just universal challenges. I think there's a lot of great people working on that, especially at UCI. And one of the things I think is going to happen is if there's this money going into these startups for renewable energy, that you'll have innovation that will happen from them, and that they may be able to find some solutions. But right now I don't have one for that. Well, so that's a good question. I think that what the cities can do is when they're still connected to the utility grid, and they can still get electricity from the utilities. The utilities are not going to shut them off. So they could make a deal with the utilities. If there's no renewables available, then they get this other source. But they could prioritize the renewables. Yeah, that's a good question. So we do run into that sometimes. For the smaller cities, $75,000 can be a fair bit. So we say, we'll find a city that will split the cost with you, like a nearby city. The study can cover both the cities. That can work. And also, a feasibility study is a pretty formal, pretty intensive thing. Right now, because community choice energy is kind of a known entity, there's less of a need for a really intense feasibility study. So if a city needs to, they could go for maybe like a $10,000 route where just somebody kind of does a quick assessment. So there is some flexibility there. And I understand that some city councils might not be willing to do that, but there's still. All right, well, I think that we are all done. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Appreciate it.